This episode of Warchant is sponsored by McMahon Cove Gilly. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
A little bit about your early days in North Jackson, the guys you had to go against, Toe Eldridge, Bobby, Mitchell.
Yeah, those were a couple 1990 guys.
That would have been your sophomore year?
That was my sophomore year, was the 90 team that we've all talked about so much. And, that team means a lot to me too, because it was a kind of next man up kind of thing right during that scenario and even later. But, yeah, it was a fantastic team. And we talked about this a little bit off camera, and I know you guys want me to talk about it again, but I felt like that 90 team when I was a sophomore was kind of it's almost like the time when North Jackson began to believe that we could really do this, right? Those guys had an edge. The way they played, really early in the season, they grabbed the number one ranking. They just had it all, man. They were just really complete, unbelievable football team. It still breaks my heart to think about the way it went down and the way we got beat down there at Deshler and all that stuff. But yeah, that was a fantastic team, tough bunch of guys. Rough on a bunch of freshmen and sophomores. I tell you that. I got a million stories about all that. But yeah, man, they were awesome.
Who were the running backs on that group?
So the main guy was David Holloway. So David Holloway is not bad.
He's gonna come down and do a show.
Tell us about the legend of David Holloway.
David Holloway to me was you talk about fun to watch, man, on the sidelines. He was one of these guys. Another factor about this 90 team I'd love to kind of bring up. We talk about what ifs sometimes. We'll talk about David first, but David Holloway to me was one of those guys that we've had guys at North Jackson who've had more God-given talent, but David Holloway believed. Man,
one of those guys.
Yeah, he was just one of those guys that was 125%. Wasn't that big, but extremely hard to tackle one-on-one in open field. He hardly ever had one guy bring him down. He was just
Jeff telling the same thing like you're describing me.
Well, that B-team game is what I was thinking of.
Holloway, no shit, was like one of the first. That was like when you're playing ball in the end, while y'all was out there doing the work and we're in the end zone.
David Holloway has the ball.
We all wanted to be. Yeah. We all wanted to be that guy in the end zone. 100%.
Oh, he made the paper 24/7.
But something people don't talk about a lot that has to do with that 90 team. If you go all the way back to 88, first year of the school, you think about. We talk about depth. We talk about how great the running back stable was in 93 and 2002, whenever. Brian Janaway would have been a part of that team. He's an all-state. Did they win the state championship at Marion County when he left?
So he's
a 10th grader. He's a 10th grader in 88. Chris Hollifield's the quarterback. Brian's making plays all over the daggone field as a 10th grader. And people just didn't sniff the field much as a 10th grader then. This guy's a skill player. And Lolly wanted him to be a cover corner. He's like a 4-5 guy, could run like a freaking deer, unbelievable athlete. You think about the what ifs, but he wanted to be the key guy, and that's what their family decided. We were good friends with him and all that stuff. But just to think about the what ifs of we were a little bit deeper and had one more guy that's that much of an impact player.
Pendergrass type player.
A Pendergrass type player, yeah. But yeah, I mean it wasn't meant to be, obviously, but that team was great without him regardless. They were pretty fun to watch.
How big was Bobby Mitchell?
How big was Bobby?
How big was Bobby when we were back in high school?
Bobby,
about 240.
Everybody on that team
literally and metaphorically and literally.
No, Bobby was he's a little taller than I am. I'm close to 6'1". Bobby was about 6'2". He was one of them wiry guys. He wasn't like huge, bulky, but strong. Even though he had long limbs and everything, he was fast.
They wrote that in Huntsville newspaper one time. Said the same thing about me.
Bobby was that man. He's gonna play at will linebacker.
He was a cocaine arrest.
When he's on the Voice.
Listen, y'all probably ain't never heard it told before, but one of the funniest things about Bobby was that he called himself Zonka. Larry Zonka. So we'd be in football practice, and they'd be first team D, first team O, whatever, and he just always so jacked up. He was just one of them guys that just wound up all the time. I told y'all that story when we was out in out in the garage. I won't never forget it, man, being a 10th grader. Lolly would, we in the beginning of the year, you got to run 15 40-yard sprints at the beginning of the season. One for every game. You got to win state. And then it was supposed to drop to 14 or whatever. And, we'd be at the end of practice just dead. And Bobby would be the first guy to say, Coach, we got to run some more. We're going to get our ass whipped in the fourth quarter. We ain't in shape good enough. We'd always be wanting to kill him, just like, God, man, shut up. What's wrong with you? But that's the kind of guy he was, man, just competitor. But he was that joker was tough. They'd get in them scrimmages and go at it. And, man, he'd come flying. He'd walk over there in front, like have him a little crowd, 10th graders and everything, stand over there, first team O, first team D, and he'd walk over there right in front of us. He said, give that damn ball to Zonka Mitchell and see what happens. He'd go right back. It was funny.
They should have got him. They should have got him the kicker face mask with the horseshoe.
Yeah.
They would be that much like it.
I wish I knew him. That way I could just call him Zonka.
I don't know him either. I had to look him up on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's why he wore 39, I guess. Did he wear 39?
He was
Did he wear
16?
He wore 16, sure, 39. Just like Larry. He wanted to be that much like.
Yeah.
So y'all went to your senior year. Y'all went to the second?
No, we got beaten first round.
First round?
Yeah.
Who beat y'all?
Piedmont beat us.
That's right.
Yeah, they were physical.
I don't think Piedmont's ever had a good team.
Yeah.
Can't think of any good Piedmont teams.
That was kind of a crappy draw for the first round for sure. But no, we were. Yeah, I think Lolly talked about it a little bit. We were hyped up big time. Lolly always said, that the 91 team after that 90 team was so great, it was kind of a rebuilding year. But he still said we could win it all, right? We're pretty daggum good, and we actually we lost a couple regular season games that year. Got to move down from tight end to offensive tackle in 4A, weighing about 190 pounds. But
you need to tell that story. Tell that story about you hurting your hand.
About Farmer?
Yeah, about Farmer.
Yeah,
that's a dang good one.
Yeah, so that was third round. That was against Deschler, rematch from 90. We went down there and they beat us. That was a hell of a game, by the way. If y'all ain't ever watched that one, that 35-13 score does not reflect what happened in that football game. And of course, I'm a sophomore and I'm bragging on them, right? What they did. We're just kind of standing on the sidelines, hoping and praying for a ring, right? But they played the absolute piss out of a team that was way better than they were, way more talented. The quarterback play was unbelievable. I wish I could remember that guy's name. Just had an arm like a cannon. Had some skilled players. They could stretch the field a little bit. The defense was great. So it was just a war back and forth in the first half. And we were winning 13-6 or 7 with it wasn't but like a minute to go in the half. Got all the momentum, and I'm trying to remember now who fumbled. It was deep. It was like our own 6 or 7 or something like that. Spotted them a 7, give them the freaking momentum going in the second half. It was just never the same game from that point on. But then, in 91, we come back and like Lolly said, it was kind of a rebuilding year or whatever. But there was a bunch of daggum good athletes on that team. Great football players. James Burnett was a middle linebacker. Tracy Walker, All-State. Defensive end, the running back core was pretty daggum good with some of these guys, more juniors than seniors, but skill players were good. And we went to the same place. We went to the third round and played the piss out of Deschler in the third round at home. But it was just one of those things. I don't know what it is about Deschler. Y'all are still my heroes for beating them.
I can't remember who beat Deschler.
Y'all did, and as far as I know, the only team that ever beat them from North Texas.
Probably 93.
Yeah,
yeah, they probably
93 had played.
93 didn't
They beat them after the 49ers.
They beat the Steelers.
That's to me, that's the one
Before the
asterisk
Pro Bowl.
on their season, right? Is that they didn't get to beat Deschler. On behalf, I wish they had.
If you asked them, maybe
they would have.
Stafford,
yeah.
That's why, we beat whoever it was. Yeah, we probably beat them.
Well, let me ask you this, Chad. I'm really going to put you on the spot on this. So, being a part of that era, if the 93 team played the 90 team, who would you bet on to win?
This is a fair question.
Very fair.
But be honest now. You can't be. I'm going to say these hypothetical questions are impossible to answer when you're in this. Because if you ask me the same thing about my team, I'm going to say that even though I know that there's several that would beat us, they're not beating us.
We're not asking you. Quit interrupting.
Yeah, I think it would be I think it would be a freaking slugfest. Is what I think. First of all,
I would love to see it.
but I would pick 93 for sure. And I think there's a couple factors that go into that. One, we talked about this earlier. I felt like that 90 team was kind of when, it just kind of started an era, really. I mean, it was already good. It was starting to roll, but then in that 90 team being number one and going undefeated and just really believing we were going to win the state, it's kind of, it just set a lot of people's mind to how good we were going to be as a program. And by the time you got that 93 team that goes through that adversity in 92, and we've got all them freaking injuries going into the playoffs and all that crap. And a bunch of them guys were great players as juniors. And now they're seniors, and they've got these fantastic skill players that come up with them and kind of complete the team and all that. But the difference to me, one of the main differences between those two teams is just, people have said it over and over, and I told you all a little bit of a story about the Harvest Bowl and all that stuff when we were kids, but it's just that, to me, it's that Ricky Sullivan X factor. The guy, he wasn't a big passer. He didn't throw a whole lot of passes, but he complete one when he had to. But his freaking feet, man, just having that weaponry.
He had all the intangibles.
That guy who said, put the freaking team right here, and I'm going to carry us to this 3rd down and 18 that we got to get to keep this freaking drive alive. That's just the kind of guy he was, man. He's one of those edgy, just lifer competitors when you could steer him in the right direction, make him come to practice, do all that stuff, man. When you put him in a game, and I know we've seen a lot of these kind of guys over the years. I think about Sean, that some of y'all played with, my little brother, or face little brother, Sean Gothard. There's just certain guys that are just freaking gamers that are going to be clutch. You know what's fixing to happen when the game's on the line. And Ricky was that kind of guy, and I think you see that just all throughout that playoff.
Do you remember the kick return?
Yeah, against Scottsboro, you dang right.
I opened the second half.
Took 3.5 minutes off the clock.
Yeah. yeah.
We stopped blocking, started again, looked back. He's still going, boys. Keep blocking. 20 more yards.
Scottsboro had that. They had kicked about how many onside kicks that year going into that game? It was 1 million. And Coach Lawley put a hands team. The hands team was the kickoff team that day. Remember that kickoff? That was amazing. But on Ricky, I'll make one also. I'll say one thing, and I'm not going to say a whole lot. But you show me an exceptional football team, and I'll show you a team that's got an ass whooper playing quarterback.
Yeah.
And did y'all know that to be true?
That's right.
Just about anywhere you watch football. Yep. Y'all know that. If you got a quarterback that can whoop somebody's ass when it comes down to it, your football team's going to be really doggone good every time.
If you go back and watch,
I was thinking Ben Leard at Auburn.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Ben Leard. If you go back and watch the state game, Ricky played his ass off in the state title game.
He did.
He did.
Yeah.
And by the same token, you look at, in my humble opinion, the second best team in the history by a very narrow margin of North Jackson football. Their starting quarterback has got his knee in a brace. And you talk about an X factor, and you got to lay on a defense because everybody knows that you're kind of one-dimensional now. Even though we didn't, it's not like we completed 4,000 yards, right?
That's a solid.
Hey, you're gonna hurt the host's feelings saying stuff like that in the middle of this podcast.
That was a salty defense. Though.
Listen,
96 team.
Yeah. But it goes to show that the X factor at the quarterback to me is, and Pat Vincent was a great guy. He's a great athlete. He's a great coach now, as far as I know. But there's a big difference between those two from an overall what you brought and what you could do to keep drives alive and the stable of. I tell you another X factor on the freaking 93 team too is Terry Collier.
We talked about that.
They brought him up a bunch.
Man, I'm telling you something else. I alluded to that Harvest Bowl or whatever. There's two things I remember that. I was 12 years old. All those guys were 11. I was running back at Bridgeport. I just kind of outgrew everybody for a while, and then everybody caught up and just ran by me, and I'm just a regular athlete anymore. But I was a running back, and I had 2 long runs, just pounded on me all night long. And the two things I remember about that game is Ricky Sullivan's clutch play as time was going out. He runs like a 60-yard quarterback keeper. I swear they pulled everybody on the offense. I don't know how they had 27 blockers out front, but somehow they did on a quarterback sweep. Time running out on the clock, he runs with about 65 yards for a touchdown. We're winning at this time like 14-7, best I remember. I'd run 2 long runs. The only 2 times Terry Collier didn't hit me all night long from the linebacker position. And Ricky runs his touchdown. I swear to goodness, this is the truth. he makes this long run. I'm playing defensive end. They double team me. They're bringing everybody out, and I'm just kind of trying to seal the edge. Didn't really know what that meant or whatever, but I remember them saying, don't let him get outside. Don't let him get outside. Turn it up. Nobody makes the play. He breaks a couple tackles, runs it in, gets a touchdown. We're still up by 1. If y'all remember, I don't know if it's still this way, but if you
throw for 2.
If you throw, you get 2. Run for 1. I swear to you, Jimmy Burnett, Eddie Mashburn called timeout. Called us to the sideline. Called the freaking play. They're on the road. They're undefeated. We're undefeated. This is what they're going to run. He'd actually been and either had gotten his hand on film somehow or had been to watch them play or whatever. I don't know how he knew. But I remember it like it was yesterday. Called the freaking timeout. Called us to the side. They're going to run a tight end pop pass to Maurice Suttoth. Ricky Sullivan's got the freaking ball in his hand again. Going to have to complete this pass. And in the worst personnel choice in the history of football, I love him to death right now, but Kevin Brooks gets chosen to be the guy to bat this pass down. You got me and Marky Bynum.
I would hit the wall for you, and I'd do the Brooks impression. I'll hit y'all with that.
Yeah. and so he tells us what the play is. He said and we go out there and we line up, and Kevin is 5 yards deep in the freaking end zone, and all they're going to do is he's going to get to the goal line and turn around. Just a tight end pop, and Ricky hits him right in the numbers, and they freaking beat us with no time on the clock, and we don't get to go to the Harvest Bowl. But that's 2 straight plays by a clutch guy, and the 2 things I remember are Ricky Sullivan, and the other thing I remember is laying in the freaking tub as a 12-year-old kid. Looked like I've been beat with a freaking sledgehammer, and about 90% of them were Terry Collier. That dude was a physical specimen. I'll never forget it. One of the most physical football games of my life. He beat the hell out of me that night.
He got your vote early.
He got my vote early. But he didn't, he just wasn't a factor. I mean, I went back and looked because I was curious. I'm like, oh, Terry didn't play when I played. I don't even think he was on the team.
That's kind of like what they was talking about.
Yeah.
It would have been his junior year.
But they were talking about Mr. Doris Hicks bringing him out there and all that sort of stuff. And if y'all saw Stafford's eyes light up when he said, man, this is it. This completes us right here.
Yeah.
Those 2 guys right there to me are kind of that's the separator between 90 and 93. But anyway.
Well, I talked to you about how bad it hurt to graduate and then watch them win it the year after.
Yeah.
How bad was it being hurt and being there? Dressing out.
We made him dress out.
They made me dress out.
We made him dress
out.
out.
Not only did they make me dress out, they made me wear what I wore the entire season, which was not shit under my
It's 11 degrees.
It's
11 degrees
it's like,
outside.
Yeah,
it's coldest football game I've ever been.
32 degrees, and I'm out there and nothing. Face painted up.
Got spatted.
I spatted.
Yeah.
Couldn't run. They announced us can't run out of the field.
Me personally, and I know Clayton Seal too, would say the same thing. There was no way he was gonna dress because we had played. This would have been like year 12 or 13 in a row, and it was it either way. Win or lose, this is it. And there was no way he was going to dress for the game.
It was tough. That's not a fun. You wait. Hey, you back up an all-state quarterback a whole year. You don't get to step on the field. Watch Steven Allison, he was a good player, man.
He was good,
great player, and you just bide your time, and you get out there and you get hurt in the 8th game of the year. But I can't say this
on a long snap.
Yeah,
But
I can't hold this record that nobody will ever have. Not right now, anyway. It may get broken, and I hope it does. I'm the only undefeated starting quarterback in North Jackson history.
There you go.
There you go.
Apparently, you've watched all the episodes.
Who else has completed who else has went for it on 4th and 12 in a game where you're up by 5, where you didn't have to go?
You got the best
field goal range. You're in field goal range.
With the best field goal
kicker in the state.
Out route.
Let's run the out route to the far side.
Let's run a 45-yard out route.
I'm gonna toot your horn right here, and I'm not doing this because you're my brother. I'm just doing this because this is a great play. When he called that play, throwing a 15-yard out route opposite hash. That's about a 50-yard throw.
To the slowest.
Really, that's about a 50-yard throw. They don't many people make that throw.
No.
Who was the receiver?
I was on the receiving end of that. Also,
it was also on The Voice.
So that's why they called it.
Also,
money.
No, there's
money.
Hands down.
It's one of the best throws I've ever seen. I'll say that.
There's not another player that has more fair catches or is a better. There's no one.
I was going to ask you about that because the 93 among all the things that were claimed that night.
Mm-hmm.
93 did say Stafford said they had the best fair catch punt returner in the school's history, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Not possible.
He's looking for fire.
I see that person in the mirror every day, and I say, "Go out and get a fair catch today."
I know one thing.
Don't risk it.
We laugh and make fun of it, but
don't risk it. Just call a fair catch.
This is the only.
What a tense job, though. I've never had to do it.
I didn't want.
This is the only podcast.
Pressure.
This got to be the only podcast in the country that is arguing about whose punt returner fair caught more balls.
Well, we're gonna get them both over here. and They're gonna fight. So we'll
get Grider. No, go to the football field. We need to film it. Get Grider to punt
all day,
and y'all fair catch punts.
I don't think Josh was punt anymore.
But he still can.
bet he could.
He's an athlete, man. Grider's still punt.
You know who was a good punter? Jared Gordon.
Jared Gordon.
That's one
of my classmates.
I bet Jared
I'm sorry.
Being a punter.
You got to have more spat.
We talked about. I don't remember if we talked about this on the air though. Who was the kid that Lolly brought out the time? He was going to play him at receiver because when he's going to be a red zone threat. Basketball player.
Yeah.
McCamey.
Jermaine Moore.
Jermaine Moore.
Oh yeah.
Porky.
Lolly brings Jermaine Moore.
Boys, before we start talking about Porky now, Porky would have been.
Porky would have signed SEC.
Porky would have signed SEC.
Porky graduated.
This is early Porky.
Yeah.
He was a freshman.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the one that's.
We're not talking about the
Not
senior.
talking about the one that's shirt, no pants, right? The cartoon guy.
No.
Shirt,
No.
pants.
Porky. We're going to talk about that one later.
But
Look, they brought him
no
out there.
pants.
We're practicing. They brought him out there, and Coach Lolly's like, I gotta say, got a guy going to try out for receiver, boys. We get down there in the red zone. We got a basketball player. We're going to throw it up. He's going to go get it. We look out there, and Jermaine's out there with his helmet on. We're like, damn, he does look good. I mean, 6'4", maybe? What, 6'3"?
Maybe 6'5".
Yeah,
Maybe 6'5".
Lines down, looks good. We're all like, woo. They snap the ball, turn. He go fade route. He hit him in the back of the damn helmet. Knocked him down. Coach Lolly says, you got to look for the damn ball. Come back, do it again. He comes back, lines up. Sever to go. He runs up there. They throw it. Hits him in the side of the damn helmet. Knocks him down again. 3 times in a row, he hit him in the back and in the head twice. Coach Lolly said, just go back to the damn field house.
I'll brag on Porky. I'm going to brag
Watch him go off the field.
I'm going to brag on Porky. My senior year, Coach Rose's first year, he whooped everybody's ass in the building when we got pads on.
He's bitten. After he got out of school, he got big.
And he
like Javon Curse.
But he would work a job, go to school, and he'd miss some summer workouts or whatever. And Coach Rose went down there to get him, wanted him to make up. Was running him up and down the street right there in front of Hollywood School.
Yeah.
Jermaine hung it up, man. I'm telling you right now, he looked like Javon Curse in pads.
I know. I mean,
we couldn't
watch him in a practice one day.
He was
wearing everybody out.
The first day we go out there Coach Rose is up here. Spring training, we don't even stretch. We go out and touch our toes twice, and then we're going straight to the boards. We're going straight to the boards.
Get to the boards.
And I look up, and I don't know how this happened. I'm on the same board as Jermaine Moore.
Best on best, right off the bat.
100%. And you know that whole wingspan thing. I mean,
give me my ones.
Jermaine had this 7-foot wingspan.
Oh yeah,
I did not.
What was yours?
I don't even know. Maybe 5'6",
5'8".
43.
But I mean, I was on the ground.
How'd that
go? I couldn't do anything.
I can still remember watching those board wars. And I remember coming home. Daddy's like, "Where you been?" I said, "I went to watch practice. I wanted to see what it's like with a new coach." He said, "How'd it go?" I said, "I watched like 52 fights at one time that would go for 5 and 10 minutes. Then they'd blow the whistle and stop it and reline."
I can remember learning real quick After about 2 or 3 reps, you looked at the guy in front of you and said, all right, I'm going to lay on the ground. Please God, just lay on
Jason
me.
Johnson.
That's how bad everybody
the first 3 times you went, you were pressed.
It's a dog fight.
After that, you were so worn out, and he's still screaming, run it again!
Yes.
And there's no more. You lay on the ground, all right, I'm going to win this time. You're going to lay down. We're going to fight for a little while.
So like wrestlers in a ring.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, Gerald Gordon come off, and there was something wrong with it.
Blake Benson broke his
next
arm.
He just took his helmet off. He said, put your helmet on. He had an ear pad hanging out. Half of it's cracked. He's still going because,
No,
but here's
he had an equipment.
Here's
failure,
another.
they wouldn't let him quit.
Here's another difference about that whole deal, which you think about now and then, and I like to think of me as part of the then crowd because obviously we're getting old as all get out, but doing that practice in spring. All the daddies that were there when that was going on were hell yeah and high-fiving and get after him, get after his ass. If I guarantee you what was going on, a lot of the practices that y'all went through, that Chad went through, or we went through, you don't see that. You don't see that now. You don't see.
Channel 9 will be there if they saw a team getting their water out of garbage cans on the side.
Well, you don't see
Big up
Ty Schrader and Drew Hicks. I remember looking at the garbage can one time. I think it was my junior year. We go get water, and they were in the garbage can just peeking out.
Ty and Drew.
Yes.
You remember we piled the bags up in the back of the bus?
I was waiting to get me.
Did y'all do that when you played? When y'all on road trips? Did y'all put all your equipment on the back of the bus? Or did y'all take a trailer? Chad?
Back of the bus, guaranteed.
Had to be back of the bus. Yeah. Well, when we was playing, I'll never forget this. Those bags would be piled up to the damn top of that bus.
Oh yeah.
And Ty and Drew and Joe C, as we called him, Blake Houston, that was his nickname.
Joe C.
They climb up to the top of those bags and sleep and play all the way to a road game. Right on top of that. Right on top of that. Their faces, their nose would be right up against the top of that bus.
We've breaking their nose.
Yeah. But that's funny, man.
But you think about them.
And them 3 went on to be hellacious football.
Yeah,
and you think about the 07 that we just talked about. That
was those
earlier before.
That is
they should have won us. And
there was 3
starters on that team is laid up on our equipment in the back of the bus. Going, and seeing it all unfold right in front of them.
I think
Blake Houston is the goat of water boys. He would wipe your face off when you go time out. So you'd be like, bend down here.
I'm serious. But they were there though to see it. And just what I was saying, like playing in the end zone, like during the games, we'd all be. You was there in the end zones. I was Cervantes after that. Everybody wanted to be Cervantes.
Here's something that ever since we started doing this. Was playing our county tournament this week in basketball. I walk over, going to talk to Mike Cloud for a second. I come back by Creed Richardson, 6th grader. He said, "Hey man, I love watching that Warchant. Probably don't need to be watching it, but
no, he can handle it.
I tell you what, Creed can handle it. He can handle it. But
man,
here's the thing:
he's coaching at the middle school, teaching.
Here's the thing.
He said he asked him one day, You want to watch some Warchant?
Yeah.
I said, wait a minute now.
Easy seat.
But here's the thing. Creed was like, man, I love watching it. And one of his buddies is sitting there. I said, well, here's the thing. And this is where I feel like things have kind of gotten away from us. The story kind of went away. Y'all were around. I mean, I watched y'all grow up playing ball. Y'all were around all of us. This younger group, and what's sad is like a lot of them have parents that were involved or were around, but I feel like the mystique, the story of the early days has gotten away from us. And to me, that's where we're lacking. It's not the kids.
No, it ain't. You can't because the kids.
These kids are raised by
that and the distractions.
And I'm not sitting there saying, hey, we got a bunch of bad parents. Yeah. I'm just saying somehow we've lost our way. And with all this, I feel like some of that's coming back. That's what I'm hoping for.
I'd love for it.
Because what matters to me is seeing everybody in the stands, not because they've got kids playing or their nephew or their sisters playing, It's because they want to see North Jackson win. And if you don't win, it's because a really good football team beat us.
Well, you know what would be awesome is to get the current players now, take them in the film room, let them watch some Warchant. Let them see the pictures on the wall, walk them through and see all the games.
That's what we did. We used to pop the tapes in, not the early 90s team.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember what we watched? I don't know if we watched. I know we watched it the week of the state championship game.
The program.
I watched it a million times. I've got it on DVD in there. But Rose would put on
the highlight tape. But at the end of the state championship game, we just watched the celebration and the community and the people. Just how excited.
Well, you just go back and watch, and Jeff touched on it. When they're coming down the hill, the camera is on our side. Just the sound of the crowd and everything. I can feel it right now. Like my blood pressure's been up all day, but it's thumping a little bit.
You know that South Pittsburgh game.
But it needs to get it back. We've got to have us people.
100%.
Yeah.
We've got to have that support. They've got to have our support. Yeah. And I'm not saying, hey man, because the last ball game we did, I said, Jeff, when's the last time you seen Dan Colvin at a ball game? And it's not saying Dan's a bad guy. Dan's one of the best guys you'll ever meet. But we've got to get everybody to come back. Kind of like the Miami group, Miami teams. They feel like it's on them to keep that going.
Hold it responsible.
Yes, and I would love to sit here and say, hey, I was a dadgum all-state player, like that. I wasn't. Looking around, I'm
bullshit.
I'm the second. We're talking about looking for
bullshit.
I
wasn't either. Yeah. Bullshit. Stand up, dude. Bullshit.
You for all state.
I'll go out, run around, do whatever y'all want me to do.
Hands that big, and you wear it out.
But regardless, it mattered to me. Still does. And always will. And that don't go away. And I've got a feeling the job.
Absolutely.
But we got to get everybody thinking, man, let's get this back.
We talk about
We can't put this on Joe Hollis.
The kids that
it ain't on them.
No.
It ain't on them.
A lot of the kids that never are ever going to step foot on the field and know that they're never going to play. And you got a whole team full of them. You don't got that. I'm playing right now.
I think
we had a whole sideline.
I think you go back to the people that we played with.
People just want to be a part of it.
They want to be there.
Bad,
I want to be a part of it.
That's right.
I mean, it was special.
I wasn't playing a ton. We had a lot of folks playing back then anyway.
Yeah.
And you got those guys that just every day, even when they're senior year, they come out to practice. They just show up and they're doing everything they can do to just be a part of something special, something bigger than them.
Some of them, getting their ass handed to them.
And they did it every day. And they kept coming back and they kept coming back and they kept coming back. And that don't happen. And that's just.
Parents ain't okay with that anymore.
Yeah.
Parents I just coached 5U this year.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you something. Parents don't want, and this is the majority, I'll just be honest. The majority of parents don't want practice time cutting into their week. It doesn't mean anything. They can miss practice because they went to the pumpkin patch. They can miss a game because it was somebody's birthday.
I seen your post on Facebook kind of touching on that.
Well, I mean, I'm being straight up like, I'm talking starters. I'm talking game changers. We went up and played a game this year in Bledsoe this year, and our top 2 running backs didn't even come. Didn't even show up.
Yeah.
My son's 4 years old, quarterback. All his job was, give it to the horses.
Yeah.
Got up there that day and I said, son, you're the horse today.
What?
You're the horse today because they didn't come. You're the horse today.
I'm glad you brought that up because there was one thing that I did want to say for sure at some point while we were here, right? And it was to speak to the parents a little bit, right? Just to give you a little bit of
it's a bus buster right here.
No, just to compare the difference of then versus now. Before I had ever even been part of a practice, ever even been to North Jackson in any official football capacity whatsoever, I so wanted to be a part of the program and what was there and wanted the coaching staff to know that I was fixing to give everything I had. I was scared to death. The very first freaking freshman meeting, I won't ever forget it. I had heard through the grapevine that Philip Lawley did not allow hair outside the helmet.
my freaking mullet was gone. I went to that freshman meeting and sat right in the front, just like it's right here with that haircut about right here. I just got rid of that mullet like 2 days before that meeting because I knew me and Dad were going to go. We were going to go together, and I wanted them to know day one, I'm here, I'm committed, whatever the freaking rules are, it didn't matter, right? And so you got so many parents now that, man, it just, let's go where the most wins are. Let's go where my kid's going to be featured. Let's go whatever. And you had some element of that back then, but 95% of the people that we played with, you were just next man up. You couldn't wait. It's going to be my time to be in the Friday Night Lights.
It was never even mentioned.
It was never even thought of, right? And so, so I say that to challenge the parents too, right? You got a bunch of fantastic men in this community. They'll be hard on your son. They'll push your son up, but they freaking love your son. They want something good for him. And I'm not saying every single experience you go through in football and all that is great or wholesome or whatever. Ain't nobody gonna say that, right? But from a sum total perspective, when you look back at what it is you're going through and character building and what that's doing to you as a man in all kind of endeavors in life, it doesn't matter if it's work, it doesn't matter if it's your marriage, it doesn't matter what it is, right? But it's preparing you to never quit on the things that are right and virtuous and all that.
The things that are worth it.
The things that are worth fighting for, right? And so when you're teaching a kid that will just, if it's a little bit hard or a little bit difficult or, if you ain't going to get to start or whatever, let's just quit. Like, it's the wrong message. Those kids, those kind of guys that never sniffed the field at North Jackson, but yet love the program. I ain't gonna name them because I'm afraid it'll have a negative connotation, and that ain't fair.
No, it's
because
not.
those guys are more. Every one of them. I can name a bunch of.
For all practice,
and the thing is, you go and you look at what those guys, and we all played with them. You look at where those guys are at in their life.
You dang right.
100%.
They're all busting their butt. Yep. They've all got a great job.
You dang right.
They're all doing the best thing to do for their family. 100%. And
when it's all
they took all that.
Without
they learned how to have grit, and they learned how to fight through things and deal with adversity, and they're better men for it.
And when you're in that situation, because I had buddies that were both. I had buddies that played almost the whole damn game, and I had buddies that didn't ever see the damn field. We didn't look at you. We didn't look at that guy like that. I never looked at him, so he don't play.
Never.
That never even came.
How do you get great without a freaking without a second team defense that you can pound on? I mean, every man out there is important.
Never even talked to me.
And the thing is, you look. I mean, when you sit there, you earn that respect in summer at 5:30 in the morning when you're out there, and everybody's out there and just busting.
Everybody.
Their tail. They all. And we're all in the same boat. And it didn't matter because we were there to make each other better.
Do you know how hard that is to show up at 5:30 in the morning to a summer workout? That's brutal summer workouts, knowing you're never going to get on the field. Deep down, you know I ain't gonna play.
Right.
But you're there.
That's some character.
That's a lot of character.
Yep. Those summer workouts that we had, I'll just be straight up honest with y'all. I don't know how other schools did it, but it was pure hell.
My sophomore junior year. Yes. Sophomore and junior year were two of the worst. I wish Peake was here. Peake tells the story best. Do you know the story about the T-shirts we got going into
You're talking about
sophomore to junior year?
Oh, sophomore to junior.
Oh, that was
the I survived.
I survived.
Yeah. Going into my sophomore year. You're right.
Yeah,
knockdown, drag out.
It said. What was it?
What was
the shirt said? What was it?
I survived 15 rounds of knockdown, drag out.
Yeah, it was.
And on the back it said, "We're back." I survived.
And we're over there getting the PSP. We're just going through hell. And Philip Cooper's over there by a tree, high-fiving him and Lynn Colvin was over there high-fiving Edie Daddy in arm's length.
Thinking this is the greatest.
This is the best shit I've seen in a year. Because we dang sure didn't do it. They dang sure didn't do it his junior year.
We sweat now, so you can believe later.
That's another one.
It was like but that's that's.
Speaking of the fights, they brought up the fight during practices. I'm not going to name any names, and I didn't hear this story until way after the fact. But it's just I love it so much because it's the 2002 team. Well, during that summer, we had an offensive line coach. You remember that offensive line coach that came in for a few days? Also named Coach Stewart. Yeah, little skinny guy from me. He's over.
Yeah, I had two Coach Stewarts at
Marion County. He was there for a few days.
This was okay.
Yeah, he was here for like 5 days.
He wasn't
here long.
No, he wasn't there to coach. He was just there. Oh, he is there.
I do know the story.
Okay, their spring was staggered with ours a few days in Tennessee. Okay, so anyway, their coach at the time, anybody that knows the area will know the coach's name. We'll get into that. His whole thing was, I want to play a spring game for money, like with North Jackson. And that coach went back after like 2 days, the first 2 days, because we did a ton of ones-on-one scrimmage. And
like 160-something plays.
It was bloodbath. Yes, blood, just dust.
160-something snaps.
And he told him, like, no, like, you don't. It's not a good idea. It won't be good. Like, it'll be bad for the community here and the players here. And he was like, I just thought it was the most asinine thing he'd ever heard. He said, listen, we start practice this coming Monday. Please just come. They're doing like a scripted ones-on-one scrimmage tomorrow. Just come and watch that. It's like the first thing they do after they stretch. This never happens, and this is what makes the story so great. Because Rose was like, the fighting during spring was one thing, but the second, even in spring, he said the fight stop or your asses are going to run. We would stop. Now there'd be the occasional one-on-one, but there wouldn't be what was going on where it's like 11 on 11 offense versus defense. Dust ups. So he comes and watches it, and this day it couldn't have been a better day for him to show up. I think the first 6 or 7 plays that we're doing like 21 trap, 22 trap over and over again. It's just 1 yard in a cloud of dust. But we are fighting after every single play. So this happens for 30 minutes. This goes on. Well, anyway, I hear years later that he went back and told the assistant coaches when they asked him about, the possibility of having this spring game. He just was, and this couldn't be any further from the truth, but it's just so funny to hear it. Oh no, we don't need to. They're out of control. I mean, it's a team of loose cannons out there. Their coaches don't have any control over it. All they do is fight. All they do is fight. They fought the entire time. Like somebody's going to get hurt. That team's going to hurt somebody. There's a bunch of rogues out there.
That's fun. I'm going to tell a story on the best. I'm going to tell a story on the best right now. Who's probably, in my opinion, the best high school football coach in the state of Alabama is Paul Benfield. It's hard to argue. I mean, he's arguably the best high school football coach in the state. He told me when I did my student teaching at Fife, when he came up here and played y'all in 7-on-7. Yeah. And Fife had just was about to start their run that they're on now. And we were sitting in there in the teacher's workroom, and they had got, and Benfield's he's a running coach. He can throw many passes, but 7-on-7 we got to. He said I'm running boot and waggles. He said I'm just running basic wing tee stuff. He said I got guys going across the middle. He said that principal's boy. He's talking about. He said that principal's boy up there was knocking ours head off going across the middle in 7-on-7
in shorts.
He said he's forming him. He said then they run He said then I seen one on flag route. He said, they got a little boy. He said, they was calling him ant or wasp or bug. He said, bug. That's what I said, bug. He was like, yeah, bug. That's his name. He said, he runs a corner route. He said, and they throw it behind him. He just ear holes and knocks his helmet off. He said, I told him, he said, boys, get on the bus. He said, I just took him and got him on the bus and got out of there. He said, they're going to kill my whole team, and I got a shot. He said, it's in middle of July. He just got out of there.
It was different. We were different. I mean,
I laughed about that. That was funny. He told me that.
But I didn't. But I grew up.
Did he go on to have any success?
Very.
Yeah, a little bit. One hit wonder.
How did that sound? I feel like that was. That was the turning point.
It was the turning point.
That was the turning point. We made it.
Here we go. All right.
The 93 team did a lot.
Somebody made sure Paul Benfield gets.
But the 93 team did make Five football.
Yeah.
Like the 02 team did.
Well, I'm pretty sure what I heard Lolly say was that we was fixing to win a state championship till Chad Appleton got hurt. And then it just turned the whole tide. The 93 team got really focused right then.
I also heard Lolly say
I think
Birmingham.
I heard him say that too.
Yeah.
On the real,
he always said that Pepperell game was like a Vegas screw job. So he felt somebody was
on the real deal. You talk about greatest teams ever. You can cherry pick kids off of each team and place them in places and say, I'm gonna be honest. If we had the offensive line that 93 had, we cakewalk, and beat. I don't think we get touched.
Could you do it with Ray Pendergrass and tell that?
Be tough. Ray might have rushed for.
He had about with that offense at 93.
We had all.
Ray rushed
for about 1,800 yards.
He rushed for 100. He rushed. I remember the Fort Payne game that year. He had about 32 carries for about 114 yards.
32 carries for 114.
Well, since we got a good little group right here, a group that's pretty honest about seeing others, giving respect where respect is due. One thing me and St. Matt was talking about, we were throwing out ideas about stuff we could talk about, and the content for this show is endless because there's so many different ways you can go. But I'm going to throw one out because I think this will be a good group to do it with because there's a lot of good minds in here that still remember a lot of players and stuff. Give me 11 former North Jackson Chiefs that you know of, you played with, or you watched to put on a kickoff team. You're up. You got to kick it off. They got one chance to get a return.
Right now.
We're going to send 11 down the field.
Oh, we're going with just 11 mass whoopers.
11. I want 11.
Me and Coop right now.
We got one. We're talking about the same.
I want to know. Let me guess.
Chris Holcomb.
Yeah,
I knew
hardcore
Holcomb.
That dude right there.
Suicide.
Will bust a wedge to hell, dude.
But that's the purpose. And I'm saying this with the ultimate nod of respect. That's the guy we was just talking about.
Chris Holcomb.
That's
North Jackson football. Chris Holcomb is North Jackson football to them. That dude was
I've got to know him in the last probably 4 or 5 years. He's a dang good dude.
That's the one.
And I've always heard that. That was how I got to know him.
Hell raising.
His boy's a stud. Is he going to Scottsboro or North Jackson?
He's got the damn heart his daddy's got.
We're working on
that. Ain't no stopping him.
Holcomb, what's it going to take?
They live in Hollywood.
Hollywood.
Holcomb knock your ass off.
I'll tell you one I throw out there.
Well, he busted a wedge.
His son's following it.
His son.
Graduate with you, Danny.
Danny Wellmeyer.
Yes, Danny Wellmeyer's another one running.
Hardest kid I've ever seen in my life. Billy Stokes.
Did you hear that story?
Who? What? Yeah, that
where was it? Pope John Paul, right?
Yeah, Pope John Paul.
Their play-by-play guy. He's about 80-year-old man. And he's standing there up beside us. We're doing a broadcast. We sent the kid out after we scored, kick extra point. It's number 37. It was one of the exchange students. We didn't know his name. Jeff, I was like, 37. Who's 37? By the time he kicked, I said, Danny Weltmeyer's extra points. First name, that's the only 37 I'd ever seen that I can remember. And that guy standing right beside me, his extra points up.
You couldn't say Sean Alexander.
No, you got. I wanted to Chiefs, so I thought.
Hold on, I want to go. Let me get in here.
Run it down.
Y'all go.
We got 8 minutes. Let's make it count.
I'm gonna go. Give me Clinton Thomas.
100%. So,
Clinton Thomas.
Body count.
We're coming at halftime one time. Coach Lolly was chewing us out. Coach Lolly's in the middle of talking. We're just sitting there. Clinton's like this right here. Everybody's listening to Coach Lolly talking. In the middle of Coach Lolly talking, Clinton just goes, "Hit him in the mouth! Hit him in the mouth!" I ain't had enough. I can't take it anymore. Coach Lolly just quit talking. And that was it.
And he had that smirk. Lolly had
he just walked out like,
okay. This guy
okay, they're ready. Did it. Clinton was that dude, man.
So
who'd you pick?
So we got Clinton, Holcomb,
Danny Weltmeyer.
I'm going to say James Arnold.
Yes.
Big Earl. No.
Billy Rooks. Billy Rooks.
Shaq Williams.
Doug Clark.
Doug Clark.
Yes.
And I'm going to throw George in there, too.
Yes.
You got to have George.
Hey, George did it.
I'm going to tell you a thing about George.
George was,
You go to any summer workout in the summer of 2001, and it didn't matter if it was the first
He have to do double?
Or he had to do double workouts that year, y'all.
Yeah. It didn't matter. It didn't matter.
Yeah. We going to say why. He had to do double workouts.
Or the 35th. That joker ran at the same speed, and he was 15 yards ahead of everybody else on the team.
First every time.
Every stinking time.
That is the reason why. The number one reason why he's Mr. Football that year.
That was exactly.
I
don't even know how many times.
I don't care what nobody says. If there's anything that I will fight somebody over. There ain't never been a soul at North Jackson that played with more.
I'll give you. Let's get this 11 over.
Period.
I'll give you a good George story about that.
Nobody.
I heard a bunch last night on telephone about 1 o'clock.
I'll take
who we put
now. I don't know about the rest of their years, but their freshman year, there was 2 of them on our team that was really, really good. And that was Cam and Woody.
100%.
Yes.
Darrell Langford and Cam Robinson was 2 vicious.
Them 2 of my boys. Yeah, they hold a little.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you this,
especially when they were freshmen, they had something to prove. Because that's when they got on the field.
No fear. Absolutely.
Contain.
Savanas.
Lee Witherspoon.
Savanas
would be a good one.
Al Walker.
I'd go Ty Schrader.
Al Walker.
Ty Schrader, no doubt.
Very good.
Ty Schrader, maybe Al.
Yeah, somebody can.
I tell you, somebody get some back.
I'll tell you one. Don't get
Chad,
don't get a lot of.
Who's running down on kickoff?
Is Dirty.
Dirty.
Stone could bring it.
Yeah, Dirty not
a good player.
I'll tell you.
I always thought he'd get up. I love it.
Who made every tackle on kickoff my senior year? He was a sophomore. Zach Westmoreland. He made every damn tackle.
There's another individual.
There was another.
He don't get enough credit. When he hit that boy at Gadsden on like 4th and 1, dude.
And you won't find anybody that loved being a North
Jackson Chief like
more than Zach Westmoreland.
Yeah. I think we missed a lot of the early guys. It's hard to.
I don't know.
Well, Chad could.
I'll tell you. Who's running down on kickoff?
It's hard for me to narrow down to one.
Let's have a good week today.
I know he was fast. I don't know how.
I'll tell you somebody who was probably the most, the toughest guy for his size. Absolutely fearless. Probably the smallest middle linebacker we've ever had to be so damn good, getting downhill, hitting people in the mouth, that kind of stuff, is Neil Shavers. Neil Shavers was one of the most, and I think it was a little bit of a chip kind of thing because his brother was so freaking big and just a man at defensive end, and Neil just had a chip on his shoulder. Man, he would hit you in the mouth. About 160 pounds, and you thought you got hit by about 220. Man, that dude was tough. God Almighty, he was tough.
I remember he was
still tough.
What was it? 2 or 3 years ahead of Stacy and Owen and them in school.
He graduated. Me and him played linebacker beside each other.
I remember being at the school, and I remember seeing him. He had a tattoo. I was like, man, that dude's got a tattoo. I can still remember that.
Yeah. That didn't work for me. I had it too. But
I remember Robert's got 58 tattoos.
You're like, damn, I can still be his ass.
What did those guys from Fairview say to get off the bus that time, Robert?
Well, that's what's going to. We talked about that earlier when you were talking
4
about
minutes.
George.
You were talking about
George got spatted at Fairview.
First time ever.
Last time.
Cut them off.
First and last time. Cut it off.
We were talking
Boy,
about.
look good though.
Y'all did the little hypothetical about the 11 off the bus, like who you want to see, which is this ain't where that story's going. But so we go to Fairview. Like I said, it was one of those things where the superstitions. Like I wore the same jeans my junior and senior year of the games I started. Sat in the same bus seat, so I'm at the back of the bus. So at this point, there's been several people get off the bus. How they must have been looking down at their feet or talking about the pork chop biscuit that they had earlier at Hardee's that morning. There's a bunch of elderly guys just standing, obscenely close to the visitor's bus.
Right.
And I get off the bus. The second my feet hit the ground, I hear one of the old men. He's chewing on his little toothpick, and he cuts his eyes at me and says, God, these guys are little as hell, and we're going to beat their ass. But then, you know what?
2 minutes.
3 fair catches that game.
3 fair catches? Yeah.
Robert,
you showed them, dude. Actually, I
didn't
have any. I had one actual return. It was probably about 4 yards.
Robert, tell us about the
2 minutes.
The Long Johns. We got 2 minutes.
Oh, God. I thought we were doing
We're going to end this with a bang.
Yeah, dude, that'll give me a good reason to.
Okay, so Brooks, maybe you could let Coach set it up, and then I'll.
We got 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
I got 2 minutes. You got to tell.
All right. So we're playing. This is my sophomore year, and I'm sure you can tell by looking at me and the vicinity of these people. I didn't play my freshman and sophomore year, but I was on field goal block and punt block because I just wasn't afraid to damn lay out and had to make a good angle there. It's math is all it is. But anyway, I digress.
You're our state tasker.
And I appreciate that. But the game was getting close. We'd started throwing the ball in the second half, sort of moving it a little bit. And we go to there. We've held them. They're going to punt. Coach Schrader turns around and is like, Robert, Lee, where's Lee at? And I waddle up to him at this point because it's like 10 degrees outside, and I've got several layers of long johns on. I look him right in the face and I say, Coach, there's no way I'm not getting to this ball. I mean, I'm wearing too much shit. And he looks at me and he's, I appreciate you being honest with me. JJ, get back out there. Well, he sends him back out there, and then Jason Johnson proceeds to annihilate their punter, who had just a terrible punt. It was way after he kicked it. And then Coach Schrader turns around and looks at me right after that, and I'm not going to – he was very angry, we'll say that.
Say it, Robert.
I'm not going to say it. There's kids watching.
Do it, Robert.